Keystone Pipeline, Mr. Speaker, approved. The Dakota Access Pipeline approved. Think back, Mr. Speaker. We are going to disagree on things. I'm perfectly comfortable with the disagreements that this body has. But when the application for the Keystone Pipeline was delivered to the administration, it took longer for the past two administrations to approve the Keystone Pipeline. And by approve it, I mean ultimately they rejected it. It took longer for them to consider and reject the Keystone Pipeline than it took for Americans to build the Hoover Dam from start to finish. I want you to think about that. When we're talking about jobs, when we're talking about the economy, when we're talking about America being that beacon of hope and freedom and opportunity across the country, when we're talking about the tremendous need for public works projects in this country and the amazing things the American people can do when they put their shoulder into it, it took longer in the 21st century to get an answer to whether or not you're allowed to build a pipeline than it took to build the Hoover Dam from start to finish. That's bad for all of us. That's bad for every Republican, every Democrat, every independent, every single American citizen needs economic opportunity. Every single American citizen needs a job. Every single American citizen needs the certainty of knowing if the pipeline's bad, let's cancel it and let's move on. But let's not sit and wait and delay. Let's not debate and debate. Let's get to an answer. First 100 days on the job, President Trump got to an answer. President Bush and President Obama combined, again, over 8 years of delay. President Trump, first 100 days, approved this. What does this mean? Well, it means that the oil coming out of Canada is going to come to America to be refined. Remember, the Keystone Pipeline debate, Mr. Speaker, was never about the environment and whether or not the Canadians were going to harvest this oil. It was never about that. The Canadians were loud and clear, we are going to get this oil out of the ground. We're either going to get it out of the ground and send it to America to be processed, or we're going to get it out of the ground and send it to China to be processed. You pick. Well, Mr. Speaker, that's an easy choice. If I get to be king of Canada, I can make different decisions about their environment. But while Canada has sovereignty and gets to make its own decisions about its natural resources, we get to decide, are American citizens going to profit from the processing of this oil, or is China going to profit from the processing of this oil? And when this oil gets processed, who do you think's doing it in the most environmentally sensitive manner, Mr. Speaker? You tell me. If there's a single colleague in this body that believes the Chinese are better stewards of the environment than the Americans are, then you needed to vote no on the Keystone Pipeline. But if you believe that we care more about Mother Earth than the Chinese do, if you believe that American rules and regulations protect the environment more than Chinese rules and regulations do, then you needed to be a supporter of the Keystone Pipeline in his first 100 days. President Trump took this source of indecision and confusion and provided certainty. That's not academic, Mr. Speaker. That certainty is directly connected to jobs. You can't see it from where you sit, Mr. Speaker, but I'm talking about over 500,000 new jobs, not connected to the pipeline individually. That's going to be a lot of jobs with the pipeline, not this number. I'm talking about this approach to governing that says people deserve a yes or a no answer. People deserve certainty. People deserve fast responses. People don't need to hang in the lurch. Every single member of this body, Mr. Speaker, has seen it in their constituency back home, where a small business owner said, you know what, I wanted to hire a few more people, but I wasn't really sure what was about to happen, and so I've been putting it off. I wanted to open a new franchise, but I wasn't entirely sure what the economic situation was going to be, so I've been putting it off. When we talk about the economic growth over the past 100 days, when we talk about the stock markets moving, when we talk about consumer confidence rising, when we talk about new jobs being created, we're talking about a change in attitude. And I've seen it on both sides of this body. It's a shame, Mr. Speaker. There is that underlying current that maybe voters reward fighting with each other more than they reward working together. I don't believe it, but I certainly see people posit that theory. I believe folks reward cooperation and getting things done. I don't think people pay us to agree with each other. I think people pay us to make progress together. 500,000 new jobs. I'll read from the Wall Street Journal. It says the Trump order is a promise in the bank for the voters who elected the president because he promised to focus on jobs and revving up the economy. I believe it's 12 congressional districts, Mr. Speaker, that have Democrats representing them in Congress, but those districts voted for President Trump in the presidential election. These are not conservative men and women out across the district pursuing some sort of ideological agenda. These are hardworking American families who identify more with the Democratic Party and Democratic values, but who began to lose hope in what was going on with regulation across the country and job creation across the country, and they cast their vote for President Trump. Over 500,000 new jobs, Mr. Speaker. What are we talking about? We're talking about the Keystone Pipeline. We're talking about the Clean Power Plan, which alone threatened to put about 286,000 jobs out to pasture. We're talking about new investments in infrastructure. I'm not just talking about roads and bridges, Mr. Speaker. I'm talking about the FAA and air transportation. I'm talking about ports like the Port of Savannah in Georgia, the fastest growing container port in the nation, and sea transportation. I'm talking about railroads. I'm talking about water infrastructure to make sure every family has access to clean and healthy drinking water. These are job-creating proposals. And they're job-creating proposals that have been kept off the books for so long because of regulatory uncertainty. Today we have an opportunity to do that for the very first time. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to take you back to where I began. And that's that we have a choice in this country. We can focus on the things that divide us all day, every day. We can do it. I still believe there's more that unites us as a nation than that divides us as a nation. But if you choose to spend your time talking about those things that divide us, you can fill up a day. If you choose to spend your time talking about those things that are broken, yet proffering no solutions to fix them, you can fill up a day. If you choose to spend your day talking about why everybody else is a lazy son of a gun and only you have access to the truth, you can fill up a day. And then a week, and then a month, and then a year, and then a presidential cycle, and then a decade, and then a generation. But, Mr. Speaker, if you'll recognize that working together, we've already passed more laws in 2017 than any other Congress and president working together since Harry Truman. If you'll recognize that we've taken the uncertainty out of the Supreme Court, we fully staffed the Supreme Court so that uncertainty in the legal arena will exist no longer. If you recognize that a thorny issue like illegal immigration that has been made so difficult to solve because we haven't been able to figure out how to deal with the border security aspect so that we can go on and deal with the other thorny issues. Those border crossings are down, which means our opportunity has increased for dealing with these problems that have plagued our nation for so long. I'm going to give you one example of that, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to digress. I've got a family in my district trying to bring a relative into the country from Haiti. They've been working on it for 11 years. 11 years. All the talk that goes on in this body about immigration, nobody's talking about helping my constituents from Haiti. Nobody's talking about passing a law to make it easier to get your family member in from Haiti. Nobody's talking about those families that have been separated while trying to follow the law of the land. Nobody's talking about those families that have paid out of pocket to go through the legal process all the time, all the money, all the delay to do it the right way. Nobody's talking about fixing it for those families. Let's fix it for those families because we all agree there's a better way. If you want to get your adult child in from Mexico, Mr. Speaker, you needed to file your paperwork in 1993 for their number to be coming up today. 1993 to do it the right way and have their number to come up today. Who believes a 25-year process to bring a family member into this country is the right answer? Of course folks are going to do it the wrong way. If you want to bring your adult child, your brother or sister in from the Philippines, you had to file in 1994 for their number to be coming up legal today. Who believes that's the right system? The system is broken. We don't have enough trust together to repair the system by eliminating the illegal border crossing immediate challenge. The President has created the headroom for us to work together on issues that we can absolutely solve. 728, Mr. Speaker, the number of millions of dollars saved in contract negotiations thus far. In fact, not even thus far. Contract negotiations on one single Pentagon project that the president has inserted himself in. For all the things you may think the president knows, doesn't know, you agree with, you disagree with, you have to know that he knows how to drive a hard bargain. You have to know that he knows how to negotiate big contracts. The American taxpayer is not satisfied with the way we have been doing it, with the way former White Houses have been doing it. We have an opportunity to come together and do it better, and the president is leading us in that way. And that all culminates, Mr. Speaker, in 16. And that's the number of years since consumer confidence in this country was at its current levels. You can do that math if you'd like, Mr. Speaker. It'll take you back through an entire 8 years of Democratic control of the White House, and it will take you back through an entire 8 years of Republican control of the White House. The American consumer does not care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. The American consumer cares whether or not they think their job is secure. The American consumer does not care if you're a Republican or Democrat. The American consumer cares whether prices are higher tomorrow or lower tomorrow. The American consumer does not care about our petty, silly, inside the Beltway Washington arguments. They care about whether America is going to be stronger for their children and grandchildren a generation from now. And it's been 16 years since American consumers had the optimism that they have today. I'll say it again, Mr. Speaker. We can consume every second of every day in this body, fussing, griping, complaining. There are lots of things that are wrong and lots of folks to blame for it. Or we can recognize the big hopes and dreams that the American people have placed on this president and this Congress and this time in our history. We can recognize that there is still more that unites us in this country than that divides us in this country. We can still recognize that folks care very little about us and our families and care so very much about their community and their families. And with that as our touchstone, Mr. Speaker, call me an irrational optimist, but I think there's absolutely nothing that we can't do together. And I look forward to playing a role in that. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.